I thought you were going to count me in. We just talked about this.
No.
God damn it.
I didn't say I was going to. I said I never get tired of it, and then you didn't care, so.
I didn't say I didn't care. I think it's adorable. I like it.
All right, well, next time.
Also, I don't have a light or anything, so I can't tell when.
That's why I count you in.
Yeah, see, I'm saying. You betrayed me by not doing it this time, and now I look like a fool.
Oh.
In front of perhaps trillions of people.
You're so optimistic, and I love that.
Well, you know.
All right.
Hello, and welcome to I Don't Know What That Means, the Double Empathy Podcast. I really do like that as a tagline.
We have to either address it and do it, or you have to quit saying that.
No.
Okay, great.
No, either one. They can. It's like any podcast. You know, the lore evolves, and they'll catch up.
All right, cool. Anyways, hi, I'm Jen.
And I'm Graham.
So I recently had a birthday, and I figured we would talk about birthdays today. Not necessarily because it's universally neurotypicals think one thing about it, and neurodiverse people think one thing about it, but it was topical, and I thought, we could just talk to each other because we like each other and talk about it.
Sure. I have also relatively recently had a birthday. Mine was a couple of months ago. And one thing that has become really very apparent over the course of our relationship is that we have basically diametrically opposed views on birthdays. I, broadly speaking, am not a fan of birthdays, whereas you love them. Big fan. You're a birth week kind of person.
Yes. And I think part of that is because starting with my 30th birthday, there's a general sense of ennui and dread about becoming older. And for me personally, the only way to overcome that and not just spend the entire week in bed is to hype myself up and do a fake it till I make it kind of situation and turn it into something fun, even though it can, you get that existential dread with a birthday. I think a lot of people do.
I certainly do, which is definitely part of my general grumpiness around birthdays. But in my case, it's not an aging thing. It's not like a new thing. I have really never been a big fan of it, not like the concept of birthdays, but like mine in particular. And I think back to being young, being single digits years old and whatever. And your birthday was just such like a kind of a laden thing, and I have never been the kind of person who is just like, I can just sit back and have fun about a thing, I've always been an anxious person. I've always been an overthinker. And I've always been generally pretty negative in terms of my outlook on everything, and so I think birthdays kind of trigger that. But birthdays get me in a lot of not traumas, but they touch a lot of nerves, I guess, for me. And I think talking about this in the context of the podcast is interesting because it's not all I don't know how much of it is necessarily directly related to being neurodivergent. I think that there are probably a lot of indie folks who are going to be able to probably empathize with some of these things. I think in my case, it's just I don't know, PTSD from birthdays, just a lot of things that a lot of things that I didn't enjoy, or a lot of things that kind of suck that just sort of piled up. And for whatever reason, my memory really only holds on to crappy stuff most of the time. I have a hard time remembering positive things in a lot of cases. And I think that's where a lot of it is just this one birthday had some crappy thing about it, and that's the only thing I remember, and then the next birthday also had a different crappy thing. And just over the years, it kind of conflates into birthdays are bad because there's always something,
Thinking about it in context of the podcast and how we discuss things, one of the things that I thought it kind of made sense to me after our relationship being a thing and us talking about the podcast was it makes absolute sense to me that a lot of people might just not like their birthday because you have your childhood experiences of things that maybe you don't like and you don't know why happening, and it's on that day maybe you're going to a loud place to celebrate and you have a bunch of people that maybe you don't really want to interact with, and your parents are just you're supposed to do these things, do them. And I didn't like shit like that. Like, my parents always, one of the things I hated growing up was my mom always made me give my grandma a kiss, and she was a mouth kisser, and it was absolutely disgusting.
Yuck.
Yeah. And like, yeah, if on my birthday every year I had to do that, that would be a negative memory that really like stuck in my craw. So I think I'm not surprised, but it also bums me out that you don't like celebrating your birthday, because I want to be like, let's go wherever you want to go and we'll hang out where you want to be. And you're like, I want to stay at home and I don't want to fucking talk to anybody. I don't want to do anything. I'm like, oh, fucking happy birthday, dog.
Yeah. My like of, I don't know, interest in the celebration, aspects and everything. A lot of it just has to do with probably with like neurodivergent traits. But you make a really good point that I hadn't really considered, that like any of these things that make me uncomfortable or that I don't like happening in a vacuum just on a random Tuesday is one thing, but birthdays create like an event and they like pin these things to that event, and exactly like you said, like if all I remember from last birthday is that like it was miserable and it sucked, I don't remember that about a random Tuesday, but I do remember this one day that is supposed to be significant, and all I remember about it is crap,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, again, my tendency to, for whatever reason, my brain only holds on to like kind of the shitty stuff. And so over the years, a lot of like just discomfort with general sort of birthday related things and everything gets hatched to this date that is supposed to be significant. And like, there's a lot of pressure there too. The notion of like, your birthday's supposed to be happy and it's supposed to be a celebration and you're supposed to, do whatever you want and all this other stuff. And like, it creates a lot of expectation that like sits squarely on me, where, at the end of the day, if I didn't have an excellent day, I'm like, well, shit, I fucked that up. I feel like an asshole because I didn't have that great of a birthday, but like everyone keeps telling me I'm supposed to have a good one, So I think that's definitely a part of it. Yeah, one of the general sort of paradigm of a birthday, especially in the context of like, when you're younger, when there's like parties involved, that's a real hard thing for me in general. Like a couple of huge factors of that are, one, I hate being the center of attention. Do not perceive me, I handle compliments isn't the right word, but like positive things about myself. Like I handle that stuff very badly. A lot of times, I don't know if it feels insincere or if I don't have what I feel like is the like expected or the correct quote unquote like emotional reaction to that kind of thing or whatever. So it's hard for me to like accept compliments anyway, but much less when there's like a whole day that you keep telling me is like, this is a whole day about you. Like I said, I already hate that like I'm being paid attention to at all, much less being like the whole day is all about you. No, that sucks. That's awful. And I don't want any given minute to be all about me, much less 1,440 of them all in a row. But that and like parties, I mean, I'm sure that every autistic person and probably a lot of ADHD folks and just ND people in general can empathize with parties are hard for a lot of reasons. And you bring up a good point too, when you're younger and there's like people there that you didn't want to be there, people that you probably wouldn't have invited if you had any control over the guest list.
Yeah, childhood parties are definitely like foisted upon you.
Yeah, and so I think like I've never had a lot of friends over the entire course of my life. I would say that at any given time, pick a year or whatever, and I had like one really good close friend and maybe like two or three people that I liked hanging out with, So I mean, I've never had a large friend group. So when we would have parties that were younger, it was one of those things where it was just like invite all the neighborhood kids or whatever, and I'd be like, I fucking hate all these kids, I don't want any of these people to be here. I don't want the like insincere people being like, happy birthday. You don't know who the fuck I am. Like I think that's part of why that kind of thing sort of rings insincerely for me, is like there's this societal expectation that when it's someone's birthday, you're going to wish them a happy birthday. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you don't know me. You have no vested interest in whether I have a good day or not. Like there's these people out in the world who
it's so suspicious to think people like don't want you to have a happy birthday, but they're saying it anyway.
No, I don't necessarily think that it's that like they wish me ill, but they're like concealing it. It's just like it's the same thing as when you go to like a store and you check out and the cashier's like, have a nice day or whatever. I'm like, this is something that you don't really mean. You're just like, you just have to say it because it's part of the social contract.
I get where you're coming from, but like when I say have a good day back to them, I hope they do.
And I think that's probably That's probably like a neurodivergence thing right there. Is we are typically autistic people in general, specifically, we tend to be suspicious of the social contract because it doesn't make sense.
I get that, but like it's going to an extreme where like nobody means it. Like it's not as if everybody who says has a nice day. It's not the same as like Chick-fil-A saying it's my pleasure. Right. We all know it's fucking not Chick-fil-A. Get fucked. But if somebody just says have a nice day, odds are they probably don't have to fucking say that to you.
Right. I think that I agree, and I also think that like my being generally cynical and pessimistic and my distrust of like the notion of the social contract and the expectations that it creates combined in an ugly way in this context. Like I get that, you know, and
well, also we had a moment one time where I was like, is this a fucking brain thing or you're from the East Coast thing? Because you are just like so impatient with people trying to be nice to you. And it's like, I don't know which thing it is or if it's the Venn diagram converging into a perfect circle.
Yeah, that probably is a thing. Is just my being raised in the Northeast, where I mean, pleasantries are definitely still a thing, but I don't feel like. I think that's a lot of it. When I first moved to Colorado, for the listeners, a thing that people do here that to this day still baffles me is there's this earnestness and this sincerity to that kind of thing that is absolutely not like legitimate back where I came from. You know what I mean? So growing up in Boston, like people ask you how you're doing. They don't care. They don't want to know. Here, they do. You know, I would have, I would go somewhere and like get a coffee or something. And while they were making it or while we're just waiting for whatever, you know, cashiers would be like, oh, so do you have any plans for the rest of the day? And my immediate reaction is like, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck is asking? You know, what?
This is like where Graham like kind of goes quiet if we're together and I'll have like a full fucking conversation with someone and he's like, what was that about? Happened yesterday. We were at a plant sale, which was so fun. You guys go sign up for your botanical garden memberships and go to the plant sale. It's the best. But anyways, we were walking out and this lady like stopped me and talked to me. Graham keeps fucking walking. He's like, nah. I catch up to him. The fuck was that about? She just wanted to know what was going on at the gardens. So yeah, we had a little chat. Graham was like, gross.
All right, so two minor points. First of all, I am being slandered. I did not keep
Slandering
walking.
Or accurate depiction?
Slander. Kept walking because we were crossing the street, like a busy street, and there were a bunch of people around us, and I was trying to get to a place where I could get out of the way of all the people behind us. So that's why I kept walking. And secondly, I wasn't like, what the fuck was that? I wasn't like mad about it. I was just like, what? That was weird that you got randomly stopped by some person who was asking, like, you're not wearing like a Botanic Gardens volunteer shirt or anything. You know, you're just like someone picked a random face out of a group of people.
I look approachable as hell is what the problem is for anybody. You know what? Nobody knows what I look like. I look like a fucking troll doll in Converse. And so lady was probably like, she won't hit me if I ask her a question.
Fair. But yeah, no, that's a social situation that I have a lot of difficulty with, is like being just approached by random strangers. There's too much uncertainty for me to be able to process it. So yeah, no, I wasn't trying to like escape the conversation. Like there were just a bunch of people there and I was trying to get out of the way so that I didn't have people like trampling me or whatever. What were we talking about?
Insincerity of people saying happy birthday to you is how we got started.
Right. So yeah, no, I fully admit that I am sort of a general curmudgeon. And so part of it probably is having been raised in the East Coast. Part of it is just a general neurodivergence, like a mistrust of the social contract, a mistrust of like social niceties that feel obligated, that feel obligatory, which makes me feel like they're insincere. Because like if you're saying something because you have to, you're not saying it because you mean it. And that probably is unfair in the grand scheme of things. But also like, yeah, I don't know. I'm very much of the opinion that like if you are required by some kind of external pressure to do something, that's why you did it. Because if you wanted to do it, if you genuinely like were sincere about it, you would have just done it anyway. So, and obviously I can't divine people's motivation. And,
sure.
You know, my assumption is the shitty one, is that, you know, like it just, and I give that might be, it might be kind of like an East Coast thing. Because like I said,
I think that's just a thing I associate with impatience, right? Like you don't need to ask me how I'm doing. Like just make the fucking espresso.
It's true. It's true. And that is definitely a trait for me, thanks ADHD, where like I am, I think, unkind to service workers in that way, because I'm definitely not like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. Like, you're not a person. Like, just get me my food or whatever. But to a certain point, I'm also like, I'm here to do a thing. I'm here to like do a task. And these other things that, and like making a conversation is not really a part of the task that I'm trying to do.
Right.
So, and conversation and just social interaction in general are very hard for me. This makes me sound like an awful person, but, it's social interaction is really hard for me for a lot of reasons. Mostly owing just to uncertainty, because one of the like autistic traits that I have very, very strongly is, I'm trying to think how to phrase this in a way that doesn't make me sound insane.
Please go hard on insane.
Instinctually, I don't think that I'm the same thing as other people. So what I mean by that is like
you're a center of the universe and
no,
other people are not?
No. Much the opposite, actually. But that like I very much feel like human being, like I'm not human, maybe, that like I'm an alien, that I don't understand so much about the way, or I shouldn't say I don't understand, but like I don't instinctually get a lot of like social interaction stuff and the way that society expects people to be and everything. I don't get those things on an instinctual level. I have to like stop and think about them.
Mm-hmm.
Because when people are out in the world interacting socially, they tend to hew towards those kinds of expectations. So I think I've gotten better about it, I think, but for a really long time, I sort of had this sense of being like on the other side of a thick glass wall from literally everyone in the world, because I was like, you are something and I am a different thing. And I think that kind of caused me to keep people at arm's length for a really long time. And so whenever I would be like approached by someone unexpectedly, I mean, the fact that it was unexpected in and of itself is hard, but whenever I would be kind of approached by someone socially, it's like there's this whole set of subroutines that kick in my brain that are like, okay, I have to, don't be weird, basically. Just like trying to anticipate the things that they might like want. They might want to talk about it. They might want to ask me about it or whatever. And how to respond to those things. First of all, how to respond to them literally at all. But how to respond in like an appropriate way, and basically like how to, I got to strap my mask on and make sure that like it, that I adjust it and everything before I start talking to people, because otherwise, I don't know. I'm going to, break the social contract, or they're going to realize I'm this weird alien thing or something. Tentacles will fall out. I don't know. But yeah, so I mean, social interaction like that is hard. Like I said, for a really long time, I always had the notion that like I had to perform humanity almost. And if I wasn't like prepared for that, in an environment where like I expected I was going to have to do it, like being, someone just like stopping me on the street or whatever, I'm just in my own little world. And then suddenly I have to like really quickly sort of rearrange and like remember how to be a person. And that is challenging for sure. I fear I have gotten off track again.
That has never happened once in the history of our conversations.
It's happened 5 times in this particular conversation. One of the other things about birthdays that is hard for me, particularly in the context of like parties, is they tend to be very food centric, and food is super fucking hard for me. Food is hard because I have a very narrow safe food list. But more than that, like...
Which I don't understand on your birthday. Why don't you just be like, I want fucking pizza. It's my birthday. That's my safe food. We're doing what I want.
The short answer to that is I have a very strong CPTSD response where I can't stand up for myself and I can't advocate for my own needs. So,
but you say that like I'm like, well, I want to have lasagna on your birthday, bitch.
No, I know, but like there is no being asked for my preference is of necessity like kind of owning and standing up for my own needs and my own wants, and I can't do that with other people. It's incredibly difficult for me to do that, even in an absolutely zero stakes environment like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's the short answer to that, is that it's like you ask me like, oh, what do you want to do today? It's your birthday or whatever. And I am immediately aware of like the pressure to do that, to like, elocute my own needs. but also like the action that I have any idea, honestly, what I would want to do, or what my preference might be. There's something there and I can't find it. I can't think of I can't find a way to get to the point I'm trying to make.
What point are you trying to make?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't, but like it's tough enough for me to figure out what I want to do with myself in my own head. But then you asking me what I would want to do creates this pressure because now, like, you have an expectation. You know what I mean? And
I know that you think my expectation is bigger than you just answering the question, but like that's literally all I expect.
No, I don't. The fact that you create an expectation by asking the question, and that's the hard part. It's not that I think that it's not that I expect you, or that I don't think that you expect me to come up with like this marvelous gigantic plan, or anything. But like I said, I have a hard enough time doing it myself. So if I'm just sitting around, and I have like a couple of hours to myself or whatever, I end up doing nothing because I don't know what to do with myself because I don't know what I want, and I don't know what I would like to do. So then you saying like, hey, what do you want to do today? Now there's the extra pressure where I'm like, not only am I failing my own self because I don't know how the fuck to answer that, but I'm also failing you because now you are asking the same question and I still don't have an answer. And then it's like, feels bad, I guess. It feels not good to feel like someone is waiting for you to answer a question that you can't, So that's definitely a thing. And it comes up with food too. It's like, I'm not an especially like food kind of person, I mostly don't care. And it's very rare in my life in general that I've ever been like that I've ever eaten something or had a meal somewhere and been like, I need to have that again. Like that is a good food item and I would like to repeat that experience, So combined with the fact that I have just a piss poor working memory and I don't remember any, if it was more than a week ago that we went somewhere, I've long since forgotten that we went there in the first place. And like, I don't really have any memory of, that particular food was good or whatever. So there's another like layer of pressure on top of that because I kind of feel stupid that I can't remember things like that, and that I don't have an answer. And I think, I don't know if we've specifically talked about this, or I'm sure that you've noticed, like anytime you'll ask me, even outside the context of birthdays, anytime you'll ask me like, hey, do you want to get something to eat? The only suggestions that I can make are like the last 2 or 3 places we went to, because that's all my brain remembers, and sometimes you'll be like, oh, well, why don't we go to such and such a place? And I'm like, totally blank. No idea. We could have been there 1,000 times. And if it wasn't like really pretty recently, may not have any idea, which is definitely, there's a lot of like neurodivergent layering underneath that. ADHD doesn't really equip us with very good working memory. We tend not to remember things that aren't like directly personally interesting a lot of the time. And like I said, I'm not really that interested in food, so it doesn't, a lot of times doesn't stick. But the other thing about birthdays, I think, in the context of food, and this is true of like any kind of food centric celebration, in previous relationships.
We're going to do a whole episode about food because I feel like relationship wise, it's a way fucking bigger topic than
true.
People might realize.
Yeah, it really is. And there are probably people who can empathize with me on this one. But the very short version is that I have a lot of trouble around food, partly because I have such a narrow safe food list. And when presented with like a lot of food options that do not fall into my list, I got nothing. And that in turn creates pressure in the context of like Thanksgiving at somebody's house where they're like, I'm going to feed people and like I'm expected to feed people. And if someone sees your spread and goes, no, I don't want any of this, or I'm not hungry or whatever, like you feel bad. And I accept that, but also like if I can't eat, I can't eat, And so there's been a lot of like kind of pressure around that. And people have, I don't think bullied is the right word, but like people have been really shitty to me about my eating habits my entire life, particularly family. And so in the context of like birthdays and stuff, there's like a food aspect to it. And it just stresses me out to have to be like involved in like a food centric kind of a thing in like a certain way. It's, you know, it's masking again. It's the same like social contract thing. And like, there's an expectation that, you know, Christmas dinner is whatever, is these, you know, these things. And none of those things are things that I want to do or things that I'm good at, you know, down to and including fucking eating, which is a weird thing. But yeah, we'll have a food episode, I think, and kind of go into that in greater detail. But yeah, you know, birthdays tend to be kind of foodie, even for something as simple as like cake. My mother, for whatever reason, couldn't remember what kind of cake I liked. And I was like, it's like chocolate. Like that. First of all, I don't know how that's hard.
You just spent like 6 minutes going on about how you can't remember anything and you're mad at your mom for that?
No, I'm not mad at it, but
you're talking about it.
I understand where it came from. My mom also was neurodivergent. And so, yeah, she didn't really remember. She was also terrible at jokes. She was awful at fucking jokes. You know, she would hear a joke and think it was funny and then like try to repeat it to people, but she'd forget the punchline or she'd forget like Dale, you know, it'd be a joke that was based on like a particular choice of words and she'd use entirely the wrong words or whatever. She's terrible at jokes.
I like that she's still out there trying to like tell them anyways, even though she wasn't good at them. That's amazing.
All she had was like the concept of the joke, and that's
she's like, I got this wicked setup, but I don't remember how it ends.
That's all I need.
I love it.
Yeah, no, it was great. But yeah, so, you know, she would never like remember the, you know, and obviously that has stuck with me maybe more than I realized. But like that was sort of a frustrating thing because it was like, I don't really ask for anything on my birthday. There's like one decision that I make about birthdays, and it's like the kind of cake that I get, and it's always the same thing. And you're constantly like, is it this? Is it that? You know, and half the time it would be something else anyway, you know, or they would get something that was not like a chocolate, you know, basic chocolate cake, whatever.
I get that. I would be upset about that. Also, yeah, I would also say make sure it's the fucking cake I like, because that's what kind of asshole I am.
Well, right. But I mean, you know, like you said, it's your day. It's, you know,
yeah,
you should have the things that you want, especially when you have a stated preference like that. And so that's kind of an undercurrent. Honestly, a huge part of my life is just like having a specific preference and then just not getting something else or getting, you know, whatever. And I think that's not a neurodivergence thing. That's literally everyone in the world. You know, life is
people don't like not getting their way.
Life is disappointing.
What?
But you know, there are a lot of people who are, I think, focused on like particular things, you know. You know, if I say that I want a chocolate cake, like I think for a lot of people, like any cake is fine. You know, you're like, oh, I wanted a chocolate cake, but you got me, I don't know, a strawberry cake, whatever.
I don't buy that. I think everybody has a preference.
No, I'm sure that they do.
They want that. They're going to be a little disappointed.
Right. And that's what I mean is like the little disappointment, right? Is that, you know, if I say I want a chocolate cake and you show up with like a, you know, a funfetti cake or whatever, A, I'm not having any. B, I'm like crushed. Mm-hmm. Like that hurts a great deal. Which is, you know, RSD we've talked about before.
Say it again in case people don't know what it is.
Rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is basically like any kind of rejection up to and including not getting the things that you want, especially if you've been specific about it. It has a really iterated effect. You know, so someone will, I don't know, decline your invitation to hang out or something, and then you can't speak to them for a month because, you know, you're just destroyed by it. So it does kind of trigger RSD in that sense, but also like, yeah, like I think for a lot of people, a lot of people could be a little bit more open about it, you know, and be like, okay, well, it's not exactly what I wanted, but like, it's still cake, you know,
sure.
You still tried, you still showed up, you still brought me, you know, the cake. All right, cool. Like I can, unless you show up with like a cake that I actively dislike at that point, it feels like I should be able to be like, all right, you know, I'll have what I have. You know what I mean? Whereas my reaction is like, okay, well, I'm having none because I said one specific thing and this is something else. Ergo, it does not meet my needs. And I'm out. Yeah, so that's a big thing. And like, yeah, the kind of food stuff around it is always a real treat. But I feel like, which I know is frustrating for you because I feel like you are a person who appreciates a good meal. Right. And you are a person who is much more adventurous and open about food than I am. I mean, obviously, like I said, we'll have a whole kind of thing about it, but just I feel like it's got to be so alien to, as someone who wants their birthday to include like good food. it's got to be so weird for me to be like, no, that's not a part of it.
It's fucking bananas. But again, am I going to die on a hill where I'm like, you have to be the same as me? No. So that's fine. And on my birthday, I'm going to decide what we're eating and you can have it or not at this point, which like when we first started dating, I would be like probably kind of butthurt about it. But now we just have birthday brunch at Hamburger Mary's and you can come or not, Graham. He did come and I was grateful, everybody. It was probably the fucking most, but you were a champ. Thank you.
It was a good time. I think preparation is really important, and my knowing kind of what it was going to be, being able to look at the menu is helpful. Being able to get a sense of like what's going to happen when we're there, you know, and all of that, so that I can kind of like prepare myself for what it is.
You say it like we're going to war.
I know, but like if I knew nothing about it, if it were like a surprise thing and you had been like, get in the car and we got there and suddenly like this is what was happening, I'd have been like, I'm gonna be outside. Like, I genuinely want you to have the time of your life. And a large part of that is going to be not having me next to you, like melting down. So I'm just going to go be somewhere. I'm going to go be somewhere else. It's not that I don't want to hang out with you or that I don't want to participate. It's that my being there is going to lower the fun quotient for you. And I don't want to be responsible for that. So.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't. And honestly, I was a little bit worried because, so like, if you guys don't know what Hamburger Mary's is, it's hamburgers in a drag show, brunch. It's like Disneyland for people without kids, basically. We went with my best friend, who is just as loud and obnoxious as me, and her brother and their significant others. And then also my brother, who is the opposite of me. He is ice cool, barely says a word, and when he does, it's like real sharp-witted. He's the best. Do you think you and he sitting next to each other helped? Because I couldn't help but notice that was how it ended up.
I don't know.
I feel like he doesn't drain you the way the rest of the group does.
He doesn't, because he's one of us. He's absolutely neurodivergent in some stripe. If that dude is not autistic, I will eat all the hats that I own. With that said, yeah, maybe like we're sitting over here in like in the quiet autistic corner in the middle of like the chaos that is and as far as like drag show goes, I feel like that term can really encompass like a whole spectrum of things. This is the grown up version. This wasn't like drag queens in ball gowns reading children's stories.
Oh, like that's not a drag show, and I will physically fight anybody who tries to say drag queens reading to children is a drag show.
Sure, but the point that I'm trying to make is that this was a bombastic and very adult-oriented sort of event.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of deep-throating of dildos, but there was at least one instance of deep-throating dildos, and I've never seen so many ass cheeks, you know.
So a good time was had by all, is what
right?
I'm
Absolutely,
hearing.
Yeah. No, but that it kind of plays to my point, right? Is that like that kind of event, like lots of lights, lots of music, lots of like sexualized energy, just sort of free flowing around the room, is a lot. And so if we had just shown up there and suddenly I was surrounded by that, I'd been like, oh, this is not for me. But you know, being able to go into it kind of knowing what to expect is really helpful.
Sure.
And the other, like,
you think my brother's autistic?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I do.
I feel like I don't at all. I think he's just
more
introverted than some people.
You know him in a certain way, and you've known him as a certain person for a very long time. I've only known him for 4 years. Yeah, I think so. And I mean, again, you know, we're not a different species. We're not, you know, whatever. But yeah, there's I would be to find out that he was not. I hate the phrase on the spectrum, but
I just think about my friends that I know are, and I think about my brother's habits, and I'm like, no, he doesn't do any of those things.
Well, sure, but I mean, we're all different.
I get it, you know? But like, when I don't see any box checked, I don't see where you get the suspicion, I guess.
He's very quiet. He's very kind of reserved. If he is autistic, I think that he has a really solid like social mask. I think that he's really comfortable with that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Small social circle, relatively limited interest that he really, really likes. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you just sort of get a vibe off of somebody. I don't know. I've been wrong before, but
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm too close to it, but I'm just happy you get along with a person in my life, if I'm being honest. So
Okay, I
whatever.
don't not get along with people. It's just that you tend to attract extroverts. A lot of your people are extroverted, and that is just tough. It's not that I don't get along with them. It's just,
I maybe not get along with is the right word, but you will willingly interact with my brother.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It just, I'm sensitive about it because it makes it sound like I hate all your people, and I don't. There has been apparently a lot of that your people think that I hate them, and that's not true. They're just taxing.
I think the problem has become kind of like a what's the snake eating its tail?
Ouroboros.
I know you know this. Okay. It's become something like that because my best friend in particular is like, he has to like me. I'm not going away. So what's the fucking problem? How do we fix it? And it's like, you just need to simmer down, basically. And the two of us wind each other up too, so it's always going to be a bad space.
True. The way that no one in the world is 100% themselves when they're with anyone else. The only time that you're completely yourself is when you're alone. And everyone is masking is not specific to autistic people. It's not specific to neurodivergence. Everyone has masks, right? The person you are when you're at work versus the person you are when you're with me versus the person you are when you're with your bestie, right? And the mask that you have with her is, I guess, it's, it's all of the things that you are when you're with me, but like turned up to 11.
Yeah, it feels like we're 20 again, and it feels fucking awesome. And
no, that's...
So, like, yeah, like I said, we just wind each other up. And honestly, some of our not best traits come to the surface, and that's just the way it is.
No, I am genuinely, like, deeply envious of that. Not to suck all the fun out of the room, but my brother found... my brother died in 2016, and he is not my... like literal blood relation, although we actually are related, but like very distantly. We're like seventh cousins or something. But he and I were like that. We were inseparable from the moment we met. And I am at an age now where I don't know that I feel like you can make that kind of friendship at my age. I feel like I'm never going to have that again.
That makes me so deeply sad. And like, I want to be like, of course you can, but like, I can barely make acquaintances anymore. And I don't feel like it's a function of my age or abilities. I just feel like a lot of people are closed down to it. And it makes it really challenging. I've definitely made, I don't know, like in my 30s that I would say. I feel like deeply connected to the way I am to Jen. But I mean, the older you get, for whatever reason, if you don't have kids, it seems like you just don't have to go out anymore. Mm-hmm. And so it's like very difficult to have meaningful connections with people that you meet anywhere if you don't leave your house. So
right. I remember reading at some point, I had a very short-lived but like fairly intense special interest around like the dynamics of friendship and like how it works and where it comes from and everything, and one of the things that I don't know if like studies show or whatever, but like one of the things that is really central to the notion of developing friendship is spending time with someone in an unplanned manner, like relatively consistently, which is why people who when you have those kinds of like best friend, like deep, I feel like the difference between a best friend and like a regular friend is that a regular friend is probably like a topical friend. This is my friend who this is my gym buddy, or this is my friend who I talk about like these certain kinds of movies or certain kinds of books or whatever. And then you've got a best friend who is just like there for all of it.
Yeah.
And I think that
it's a tier, not a position.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely a different grade of person, and when I think about the people in the world that I would consider my friends at this point, they're all like topical friends. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like everyone, I have 3 or 4 people that I know just from the internet. And if you look at like our Instagram DM history, it's just memes about neurodivergence, or it's just like, I have a friend who I was pretty close with many, many years ago. And then he went to a different high school. We kind of lost track of each other, but we were always sort of like very distantly peripheral, and we have kind of gotten back in touch over the last couple of years, because he's also a powerlifter, but we don't talk about anything that isn't picking up heavy shit. So, So I would definitely consider him a friend. I think that we probably could also talk about beer. He's kind of a beer snob. But other than that, I'm like, I don't think I would just DM him and be like, hey man, did you see this movie or whatever?
I feel like my measure of who my really good friends are is like, is this a person I would call and talk to on the phone if I was crying? Because that's, first of all, two things I don't really want to do ever with another person, but like sometimes you have to.
Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, so sort of getting back to it, it's hard, and you met Jen at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had all of that like unplanned, unscheduled, time together that you didn't have to like make plans to live up to and whatever. Like you just were around each other a bunch and you clicked, and that's how it works. For the listeners, I leave my house to go to the gym and the grocery store, and that is it. I never leave this house. I am always in it, and it sucks for.
Okay, he's making it sound like he has agoraphobia or something. Like we go out. We leave
right.
the house.
I'm not, it's not like it's definitely not like a phobic thing. It's just that largely I don't really need to. I don't. I don't
like
really.
There's a sketch in this. Like, is it funny to think about a person going out cruising for friends?
Maybe.
I feel like that's kind of what I tried to do at open mics, and why it was so bad for me.
But that's kind of the thing, is that I don't have those environments anywhere. I don't like hang out at a particular bar or a bookshop or a spot at a park or something where like I might actually run into the same people. Like I said, the closest thing that I have to like friendships in that sense is like people I kind of know from the gym, who like I know their names and we kind of shoot the shit about like, oh man, they're real heavy today or whatever. But those are definitely not people who I have the means to contact outside of running into them at the gym. And even if they did, like I don't think that I would. Again, I wouldn't just be like, hey, like I'm reading this book, it's really cool.
Well, this is like the classic thing of like introverts and extroverts, right? Like the
Also
whole
true.
reason like people say that introverts have friends is like an extrovert like them, and then you can't get rid of us at that point.
That I think that there's some truth to that. But like I think it's in a lot of ways autistic people are just like introverts dialed up to 11. We have a lot of kind of like similar traits and a lot of things that are exacerbated from one side of the house to the other. But the thing that never ceases to sort of amaze me is there are autistic extroverts. There are,
yeah, like they're my friends.
the person who immediately comes to mind is the guy from Probability, who is so much
Michael.
Yeah. He's absolutely autistic, and he's absolutely incredibly extroverted. He clearly gets so much energy from other people. I'm honestly deeply envious, because I feel like I am the level of introverted at this point that like going to the grocery store is exhausting. Like I literally don't even interact with humans. I happen to pass people in the aisles and I'm just like, well, there goes a tenth of my spoons for the day, because a human was near me.
If the checkout is set to audio, Graham is furious.
Okay. Yes. This is an issue about which I am very sensitive. Robots shouldn't talk to us. I do not want a machine to speak to me.
Graham's gonna hate Japan. Everything sings to you.
I do not want self-checkout kiosks to address me in any way, shape, or form, much less in the frankly shitty way that they do it. Because not only are they talking to me, and they need not to be, they're assholes about it to boot.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I think it's charming how angry it makes you.
Ugh, I hate it. Yeah, so just like, I don't know, autistic extroverts. I have known people like that, and I'm like, man, you're possibly more tiring than like a neurotypical extrovert, because we have things like hyperfoci and special interests and stuff, and like the autistic extrovert is the one who will like corner you and info dump fucking hard.
Yeah, there's something to it where like I will be polite as possible, but you almost have to like aggressively be like, okay, we're done talking about this, because I have to like legitimately go pee now or I'm going to die, or something. Sure. Like it just gets to a point where it's like literally infeasible for you to stand there anymore, and they're not clocking it. Which, like, I know is the whole thing. Like, you're not going to clock it unless I say something, but it's like, all right, now I got to say it hard. Let's go.
And I mean, for the record, I do. Info dumping is a love language. It's a sign of affection. Like you don't usually do that. Well, I don't know. Sometimes people like corner strangers, basically. I don't know. I do absolutely info dump, but I also think that I a lot of times am like cognizant that I'm doing it. Like I'm aware that like I'm holding forth at great length and I need to get the fuck off my soapbox or whatever it is. I mean, this entire podcast is just me info dumping about my weird brain. So there's that.
I'd like to think it's a little bit about me too.
Well, yes, of course. See, now I feel like a jerk. But getting back to the topic at hand, gifts. This was kind of the last like sort of stress point that I had. Gifts can be really hard as like a recipient.
I don't understand.
I know. So for me in particular, and I don't know, again, how much of this is like a neurodivergence thing and how much of it is just me, I am extraordinarily particular about the things that I want and the things that I like. And so if someone gives me a gift that is not clearly like something that I have like expressed an interest in specifically wanting, or something that is like very obviously within my like range of interests, it can be very hard for me to, and for other autistic folks in particular, to like control our reactions in a way that doesn't make it super obvious that like I'm disappointed or that I don't like it or whatever, And I think for some of us, we don't necessarily emote the same way as like neurotypical people might. So my reaction might not be like obvious unbridled joy. It might read as like me being mad about it, or something like that. And so the kind of internal pressure, and this is totally me. It's not like anything that you have to keep aware of or anything like that. It's just the internal pressure to like check that so that you don't inadvertently like make a terrible face and then like bum out somebody who was like just trying to be nice, and who was just trying to like do something nice for you. So that's a hard thing, but like, yeah, receiving gifts in general is really like fraught, I think, for me, because I am so particular. And the other thing is like, for the most part, if I want something, an object, whatever thing, I'll just get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the benefits of being an adult without
Right.
kids. Like that's what we get to do.
Right. So if I see like a book I like or some tchotchke or whatever else, I'll just buy it. Which means that the only things that are like on my proverbial list, in terms of like things that I want but I don't have, are probably very expensive, and that I can't like in good conscience be like, here's my birthday list, everything is over $1,000 or whatever, like that's dick behavior. So gifts can be sort of tough for me in that way, and I don't know if it's necessarily the same for, like I said, other neurodivergent folks. I imagine that other autistic people in particular probably, but the novelty aspect of ADHD can make that kind of hard too, because like, so I have definitely been given gifts where I'm like, fuck, based on my reaction to this thing, I know that I am going to put it down at some point and I'm going to forget about it. And that's going to be a problem, like whether it's, I don't have really a good example, but it might be something like, if you were to, I don't know, maybe you get me a tablet, right? And you're like, oh, this will be helpful. Like you can like watch TV wherever you're always on your phone. Like maybe it'll be better for you to, to have this bigger thing or whatever. And then like in a week, I'm going to stop, I'm going to carry it around with me everywhere for the first week, because I'm going to be like, this is great. It's a new thing. And then the novelty will wear off and I'll put it down somewhere and I'll forget it exists. Not maliciously, but that's how my brain works. And then you're going to be like, what happened to I thought you loved the thing, and like that's a little hard for me too, because again, I have such an attitude of like, I don't ever want to upset people, especially on the back of like doing something nice, So like, yeah, gifts are a hard thing. And that's again why birthdays, I think in total, a lot of the kind of like things that make a birthday, a lot of the kind of like societal sort of trappings of like expectations of these are the things that we do on birthdays are tough for me. And so a lot of that is just like the notion of a birthday. We're going to have a party. We're going to do food things. We're going to have gifts. All of that just by itself abstractly stresses me out. And then just having had, I don't want to say more bad than good birthdays, but like, the number of birthdays that I can remember as like specifically like, this is great and I'm glad that we're doing all of this, is like probably on one hand. And most of them were at the beginning of my life. So I actually, fun I'm a terrible person story. I shouted at a friend of mine for the crime of wishing me a happy birthday. Yeah.
Tell the people how old you are.
29. I was 29 years old. It was my 29th birthday. And yeah, this plays a little bit into the whole like having set an expectation thing, but like I was very clear with all of my friends, like I don't want to hear about it. I don't want you. Birthdays are bad for me in general. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to be reminded. Like, let's just, we're gonna see each other on the day that happens to be my birthday anyway. Let's just like have a nice time that has nothing to do with that, and then yeah, my friend rose up and was like, happy birthday, and I just immediately like saw red and I yelled at her, and I did, to my credit, apologize like 20 minutes later. I was like, I'm so sorry. You stepped on a nerve that you didn't even know was there.
Yeah, that's a you problem at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And at no point in the story am I like the correct one. Yeah, no, it was awful. It was fucked up. But yeah, that was, for a long time, I just really hated the concept of my birthday. I didn't like the reminder that I was getting older. I still don't. And to this day, like I had 4 birthdays with you, and I think only 2 of them I've ever been like, let's acknowledge this in any way, and I'm never like mad at you for bringing it up or anything like that. But I think there's only been a couple of them where I was like, oh yeah, it is my birthday. Like maybe I'll put in a little bit of effort this time around. This past one was not one of those times. But at least I didn't yell at you about it.
You didn't yell at me about it. Yeah. It's fine.
But yeah, so birthdays can be hard. Not a big birthday person, I am. But when it comes to yours, I'm more than happy to, I don't want to say play along, but you know what I mean? Like you said, whatever it is that you need to have the day that you want to have, we should do that.
Yep. I think a lot of my, insistence on trying to have a good day is also childhood trauma related. My first memory is my brother being brought home as a gift on my 3rd birthday.
Oof.
I'm still enraged about it. No one would know this, but my brother and I are both adopted, and my 3rd birthday, my parents thought that would be a real cute gift. I don't know if my parents ever bothered to learn a single fucking thing about child psychology, but does the layperson hear that and think it's a good idea? I don't know, let us know. But yeah, so ever since then, like, I love my brother. He was just at my last birthday party, but that was like so not about me. And I come to like, I feel like I identify a lot with like my parents planning a party that had nothing to do with what I wanted. And it continued the entire time I was growing up. And so I didn't like having birthdays either until, like I said, when I was 30, I was like, okay, this is actually so depressing. I have to make it fun. And my ex and I had the same birthday, and so we had a pirate-themed birthday party like we were 5-year-olds. And it was like, actually, you know what? I'm an adult. I can do what I want. I can make my day fun if I want to. And so I try to approach it like that every year now, and some years it's harder than others. But we're just people doing our fucking best out here.
And I think that's like the right approach, I
don't know if it's right.
Well,
maybe a little delulu, but
no. I just mean like being able to step back and hold the whole thing at arm's length and be like, this has historically been bad, but at this point, no one else has any like it's entirely mine. Like no one else has any control over this, and I am the only one who can decide how it's going to be. And like choosing to be like, I'm going to put in the effort, I'm going to make it, whatever is good. And I kind of wish that were my reaction a little bit more, is to be like, historically, this shit has stressed me out for various and sundry reasons. And maybe this time I will find a way to divorce it from those things and to make it,
to make it yours like it should be.
Right. Yeah.
Have I ever given you a gift that you were like, I'm going to not hurt your feelings and act like I like it? Because I feel like I'm an exceptional gift giver.
You have occasionally given me gifts that I wouldn't say I'm like mad about, but I'm sort of like, I don't know that You've occasionally given me things that are like solutions to problems I don't think I have.
Like what?
The little glass jars in the bathroom that have like quippy.
They're funny, you guys.
They are funny, and I don't.
That's like literally the only reason you got them.
Right. I don't dispute that at all, but I remember like opening the thing and being like, I don't need a container for Q-tips. Like they come in a container, or like I don't need a container for like face wipes.
You guys, the container says just the tip.
They're good. They're good. I will not agree.
I'm
But
not mad that like it was
no, I know.
confusing, but
But that's kind of where it is
it's
that
funny.
like that, or like I don't know. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but there have definitely been things where I was like, this feels like an answer to a question that I wasn't asking.
You know what? I bet a lot of people feel like that with any present that they get. Is
Sure.
real talk. What? By the time people hear this, like last month, fucking, I got some. So like, I get that.
Sure. And I think like sometimes one of the things that I think is a little bit difficult to navigate for me about that is like, I would almost rather someone not get me a gift than get me a gift out of the sense of obligation that they have to, or like they're just like taking the shotgun approach to something. You know what I mean? Like I never.
Yeah, I get that.
I never really felt like the number of boxes under the Christmas tree was important. You know what I mean? I would rather have one present that was like significant and was meaningful than like just a bunch of clutter, you know? Jay was the fucking worst about it because he was the kind of person who, when he went on trips, his dad traveled internationally a lot and would usually bring Jay along with him when he could. And so he went on all kinds of trips everywhere, and he would come home with just like a suitcase full of like the tchotchkeiest crap, you know, and inevitably I was like, I don't
Not even like a useful tchotchke, like a magnet or bottle opener. Or
no, just like a weird keychain or like a, you know, or whatever. Like,
yeah.
I think he gave me like a t-shirt once, and I was like, dude, when have you ever seen me wear a t-shirt around? Like, that's not, you know. And so there's like a lot of stuff like that. The only present that I can remember thinking was like, okay, this actually feels appropriate, was he went to Aruba and came back with a bottle of rum and was like, here you go, bottle of rum.
Yeah, I feel like I identify a lot with you can't go wrong with a food or drink or tattoos. Like,
sure,
these are the things that I'm like, I have use for that all day, every day. Let's go.
Right. But yeah, he was definitely that kind of person. And I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if it's like, I need to get someone 5 gifts, 5 individual things, or like they won't know that I care about them or whatever. You know, like if it's something like that, or sometimes that I think that there is a social contract. It's like, you're coming to my birthday party, which by definition obligates you to bring me a thing, you know, like bring me a gift of some kind, you know. And like I said, in cases like that, I would, especially from people that don't know me super well, like this will never come up again because I'm never going to have a party with like randos. But, you know, if, you know, at your party, David's girlfriend, who is great, but doesn't know you very well. You know what I mean? And I don't know if she actually got you anything or not, but like if a person like that, who was basically like 3 degrees of separation from me, came to my party, they would have to get a hold of you personally and be like, what do I get him? You know what I mean? Because I feel like you can't just walk into some place and just like grab the first, you know what I mean? Like it would just be like random and weird. And at that point, that's the kind of gift I'd be like, okay, thanks for the clutter. Like, you know, thanks for a thing I didn't ask for, have no use for, don't really care for, and feel bad throwing away. So now I have to like leave this on a shelf for a year. So that's, yeah, I mean, like gifts are a weird thing. But like I said, the worst part for me is just that I have a fairly expensive taste, you know, and because I tend to, you know, I'll be like, oh, this, you know, whatever little tchotchke thing is like $20, fine, I'm going to get it because it makes me happy, you know, and then that way all of those like little things that would probably make good gifts are done, you know what I mean? Like they're not available to you as a gifter.
Yeah, I think that's just the thing, being an adult, like people buy the things they want for themselves. Right. So it just gets harder.
Right. So yeah, then like I said, that leaves, you know, the things that I want that I have not seen fit to buy for myself, which is almost certainly because they're expensive. And again, I can't, you know, someone's like, what do you want for your birthday? I can't be like I said, here's a list of 10 things, all of which are $500 or more, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Birthdays are tough. And ultimately, as much as I have, this is probably a through line for a lot of this podcast too, is like, as much as I have had not great experiences around them in the past, it really is up to me to try to make the most, you know?
Jesus Christ.
Disgusting. You know what I want for my birthday, Hazel, is no more mouth noises. That would be a good present.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about birthdays? We're just over an hour and 8.
No, I have unburdened myself. I've gotten it all off my chest, and now I can only have good birthdays from here on out. So that's, you know, everybody wins.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll make a late birthday wish that is the case for us both from now on.
Indeed.
Okay. say goodbye.
Peace.
Good to know this is getting less awkward.
It's hard, very difficult. Thanks for listening, everyone. Do it without
Happy
you.
birthday if it's your birthday. Sorry if it makes you mad.
You can find us on social media, on Instagram at idkwhatthatmeans.podcast. Or if you happen to be on Blue Sky, idkwhatthatmeans.bsky.social. Or you can contact us by email at idkwhatthatmeans.podcast@gmail.com.
We hope you have fun or learn something. Probably not both, but hopefully both.
Probably not both.
Anyways, thanks for listening to I Don't Know What That Means.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.